So far throughout this course, I've struggled reading the Jane Austen novels, primarily because I feel like I couldn't connect to them. Pride and Prejudice changed that, however. I felt that I could connect to Darcy on a kind of personal level, and I also connected one of my past relationships to Darcy and Elizabeth's. I connected on Darcy with a personal level because I tend to come off in public as cold hearted and self centered or selfish. People hear me talk in public and get the wrong opinion, and then hear me talk in private or like see my actions in private and realize that I do care about the people in my life and I will like go out of my way to help them. Like Darcy went out of his way just to help Elizabeth's sister and didn't boast about it. He just did it to help. And I relate to that. Um, but I primarily connected to his relationship with Elizabeth. It really reminded me of one of my high school relationships. So in the beginning, they started off hating each other. He denied dancing with her at the ball, said that she was pretty, but not pretty enough to dance with him. And everyone thought that he was selfish and unlikable and just this stuck up rich man. Um, so then they start to kind of develop a rapport every now and then and slowly start to kind of change opinions of each other. And he eventually asks her to dance. She kind of turns him down. And then he eventually asks her to marry him very rudely, and she says no. Which seemed to have made him feel even stronger about her and realize that he really wanted her in her life. And then throughout their stay at Lady Catherine's house, they seem to connect a little more through their conversations and start to really bond a little more. And she starts to realize that she was wrong about him, and she finds out what really happened between him and Wickham. She gets his backstory sorted out and realizes, hey, he's actually he's my guy. And Lady Catherine comes and tells her not to, that she's not good enough for him. But eventually they get together and get married anyway. Now, my relationship, it doesn't perfectly match up, but there were a lot of aspects that really connected with me. Like, in the beginning, me and my boyfriend at the time, his name was Nick, we didn't like each other too much. I thought that he was very stuck up and self-centered and selfish and all, this school's too good for me and so is everybody here. So it didn't click. And we all invited him to the dance. And he didn't want to dance. He was too good for the dance and he was too good for the people at the dance. Kind of like when Darcy first came into town. So it cemented the fact that he thought he was too good for the school and everyone in it. Like Darcy was too good for the town and everyone in it. So, but instead of the Wickham situation and finding out like what really happened then, I more found out that in the times that we weren't talking and I thought he was still not a good person, he had ended up helping a longtime friend of mine through a really rough time. And I had no idea. A few months later, I ended up finding out through the said friend and realizing that Nick was actually a pretty good guy. So then we started hanging out a little more, kind of like how Darcy and Elizabeth started talking a little more, giving little sarcastic jabs at each other at social events, which is something that we also did. And also like the novel, while my opinions were changing of Nick, not everyone else's were. People still didn't like Darcy. A lot of people still thought Darcy was stuck up outside of his social circle. And that happened with Nick. I kept my feelings for him a little secret because everyone thought he was stuck up and not good for me. And why would anybody like Nick? But I did. And then eventually, despite the differences and despite people not thinking that we were good enough for each other on both sides, we ended up going out and falling in love with each other, much like Elizabeth and Darcy. So that is the most significant way in how Jane Austen connects to my life.